All right, welcome back to Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars. I, of course, am your humble, gracious host, Richie Mars. Hey, thank you so much for listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And we are here with another great episode. Last week, you heard everything about the WrestleMania hangover, but this week, we're going back in our DeLorean. We're going back in time to WWE in 2019. Now, before you just clicked out of there, don't worry, there's plenty of good, but we're going to be focusing on the not so good. But I couldn't do this alone because my main man from TikTok chose this topic, and I'm very interested to get to the nitty and the gritty with him. You know him, you love him. Baldbro, what is up, my friend?
Everything is up. Everything is good, man. Unfortunately, in the business of wrestling, we want to stay positive. We want to talk positive, but we got to reflect on the negatives. Because it shows us how far we've come along in today's wrestling business. But every journey has a beginning. So we're gonna take a look back at WWE 2019 and see, like you said, all the lowlights and where we're at now.
Yeah, I definitely do agree. Like every beginning's an end, and every end is a new beginning. And 2019 was a very pivotal point in WWE creative wise. Again, you had a lot of positives. You had Becky Lynch main eventing WrestleMania 35. You had Kofi Mania concluding it at WrestleMania 35. But then you had the not so good mixed in with that. So it seemed like for every one great thing that would happen in WWE, we got two or three things that kind of hindered the experience. So what is your overall thought on 2019, the year? Like, what sticks out in mind for you?
What sticks out for me is that, like I told you off the air, like I was at WrestleMania 35, so I saw Kofi Mania happening. One of the great events that I ever witnessed live. Like that was a great event. Seth starting off the show, beating Brock to taking the belt off him. Like thank God we get. So you had two heartwarming stories right there. Seth overcoming the beast. You have Kofi Mania, him after a 12, 13 year career being in mid card. Purgatory in a sense, like, never always being overlooked, never being looked at as maybe the guy. He finally, reaches the mountaintop. He's the new WWE champion. And like you said, Becky main eventing Mania along with Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. Overall, it was a good show, but you know, what the problems of 2019 pretty much started the Monday night after Raw. If you remember that, it's kind of there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's one of the worst Monday Night Raws after WrestleMania. I mean, just from you know, the beginning of Seth Rollins and Kofi, like, you just had these amazing matches, these amazing moments the night before, and like, oh, let's have a unification match, like, put both our belts on the line, and then if you've been watching WWE long enough at that point, you knew something was going to happen, screwy finish, and then tag team main event at the end with the bar. I'm like, great.
And, well, it did start the Cesaro beach ball meme, so couldn't be all that bad. But again, when you promise the audience, hey, we're going to have a unification match night after WrestleMania, after these two guys get their moment, and not deliver through on it, that's gonna hinder the trust between yourself and the audience. And if you don't follow through on it, and if you don't think you could pull it off, then don't have it in the first place. And I think that kind of really did, like you said, set the tone for the wrestling year of 2019, so to speak, because you had these two guys that we wanted to succeed so badly in that main event spotlight between Kofi Kingston and Seth Rollins. But unfortunately, it was a sour note to start their reigns on. And we're going to go through each one of them separately, but let's start with Seth Rollins first, because this was his first chance to be the guy of WWE, of Monday Night Raw. And this is when Roman Reigns just came back. He announced he was in remission, which was great, but they're not going to give him the championship right away because they were moving him off to SmackDown because SmackDown was going to Fox and they wanted to kind of like build up SmackDown. So for Rollins, this was an opportunity to accentuate that he was going to be here to stay and he was going to be the main character of Monday Night Raw. It started off pretty hot with him, the post WrestleMania Raw notwithstanding, with him defending against AJ Styles at Money in the Bank. And then he goes on a 3 pay-per-view match series with, drumroll please, Baron Corbin. Now, I'm fine with Baron Corbin. I just don't think he's a 3 match pay per view feud in a row kind of guy when you're trying to build Seth Rollins, this new guy in the new spot that he's in, really well. I get that Baron Corbin, he retired Kurt Angle, and that's a whole other bag of worms that we might touch on. But what were your thoughts about Seth Rollins and the main event scene on Monday Night Raw at this time?
Well, like you said, right after the Monday night, after Mania, he goes into his first feud. I want to consider it a feud, just as really his first match against AJ at Money in the Bank. Actually, you know what's funny? You bring up Money in the Bank now. That's actually the last WWE show I went to.
Oh.
Money in the Bank 2019. I think it was up in Hartford, Connecticut.
Mhm.
If I remember, I went with my friend CJ. Made the drive up. That's the last WWE show that I've been to. But I mean, it was a great match and everything. But the problem with Seth's run post Mania was that I feel they booked they like WrestleMania was the de facto like finish line. It's like, all right, he crossed the finish line, he got the gold, but I feel they didn't book afterwards. It's always that long gap, between WrestleMania and the next pay per view, well, PLE now, which will be SummerSlam,
Mhm.
and it's like you said, it led to Baron Corbin being 3 times, challenging for the title. Now, there's nothing personally wrong with Baron Corbin. Like when Baron Corbin is clicking, like if you go back to NXT, Lone Wolf Baron Corbin, that's great. That's a potential great main event foe. But you look at how they've been building him up for the past previous like 6 months to a year. He's Constable Corbin. He's Commissioner Corbin. He's wrestling in button up and slacks. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you're not going to take that guy seriously as a main event contender. And also, like you booked him as a goof, as like just filler, as someone who takes the pins majority of the time. And like you alluded to, yeah, he retired Kurt Angle, but it doesn't help the fact that we found out not too far afterwards that Kurt Angle, he wanted John Cena at Mania, and we had John Cena there at WrestleMania 35. We got the Thugonomics version of John Cena. Like I'll tell you right now, when that music hit, like I popped. I was like, oh crap, we get Thugonomics Cena back, but yeah, we didn't get that. So I feel WWE doing that to not giving the crowd John Cena versus Kurt Angle. I feel that further along didn't help Baron Corbin in his case. Like, we wanted this, they gave you, and now you're 3 pay-per-views in a row. And then one of them, I think, was a mixed tag between Seth Becky and Baron and Lacey Evans, which, I mean, for what it was, hey, it was a kind of a wild moment seeing Baron hit the end of days on Becky. Because when was the last time you saw like any like intergender like violence in WWE? Like that was it was okay, but I mean, to be honest, majority of it was a miss in my opinion.
Yeah, especially because with Seth Rollins during this time of him trying to be the guy and everything, I remember it was around this point of it in his reign that he was having like a Twitter feud with like Will Ospreay, and he immediately went to "I make more money than you," which is a terrible thing to say to someone who's
Yeah,
grinding on the independence. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of his like turn and goodwill with the audience at large, or at least with the audience that are on Twitter or just like and reading the dirt sheets or whatever, because no one wants to see someone as so pro WWE that you have to go and insult people who are trying to make an honest day's work. At least that was the perception with Will Ospreay, because he was still grinding at this point. Now him and Seth Rollins are cool now, but at the same time, it didn't do much to bolster Seth Rollins and his opportunity to be the guy of WWE. And of course, when you're having a revolving door of Baron Corbin and Brock Lesnar, one person nobody won in the main event scene, and the other person we've seen too much in the main event scene. Unfortunately, it's going to get a little muddied up. So, with Seth Rollins in his year of 2019, what were some of your high points for him, and what do you think were the lowest of low points?
I mean, I just got to keep it honest. Like I would say, the high point was WrestleMania. It was him vanquishing, Brock Lesnar. And, great moment for him. It looks like he's set up to be the guy going forward. And like you said, with Roman just coming back, but, he's just coming off a remission, you're not going to, put the title on him right now. You want to make sure that he's all healthy, that he's good to go, he's firing on all cylinders. And I feel after Mania, that was kind of like the litmus test for Rollins. Like, can he be the guy you could put the company on its back and prosper going forward? But we have to be fair in the same in the same sense and think like how much of it is really on Rollins and how much is it on the creative direction that you're given. I mean, like you said, if the majority of his defenses were either Baron or Brock, because I think it was Brock who cashed in Money in the Bank on Seth, so that led to a rematch at SummerSlam. And all right, cool, Seth won it again, but it's like they're just going in circles. Like it's back to Baron, back to Brock. Okay, where else? Where are we going? Where are the new stars? Where are the new up and coming foes that that's going to keep the viewing audience interested? Like, because if you keep giving us the same exact thing over and over again, it's just gonna hinder Rollins in the long run, which we wound up seeing came to a fruition. So I'd say the highlight was WrestleMania, and the low light was I'm not trying to sound rude or anything, but it is what it is. But the rest of 2019.
Mm. And let's talk about arguably the lowest of his low points of 2019. We're going to go to Hell in a Cell.
Oh God.
So, to get everyone caught up, if you're a Bray Wyatt fan, you know exactly where we're going. So, night after WrestleMania, started the Firefly Funhouse. Probably the only out there engaging part of the show for a very long time. And it was like from there all the way till SummerSlam, they built it up, and Bray Wyatt's alter ego, the Fiend, and they hot shotted the Fiend right into a championship picture right after that SummerSlam match. Which, my opinion, I think that was the wrong move. Just because this guy's new, fresh, hot, and exciting, you need to tell that story of why he wants to go after the championship, and that wasn't exactly told correctly. And Seth Rollins was still gaining the goodwill back with the WWE fans after being booked into oblivion, and he had a pretty fun run with Braun. And then after the Fiend came out and destroyed Seth Rollins, and then you have a couple Monday Night Raws of Seth Rollins cowering in fear in the corner, screaming, yelling, crying. What a great way to portray your head of WWE Raw. But we then fast forward into Hell in a Cell. Now, ignoring the fact that the actual cell itself is red, ignoring the fact that the whole lighting in the arena is red, so you can't see what's going on.
Mm-mm.
This match did not work. And
No.
it was pretty brutal to watch because after the first stomp spot, where Seth Rollins hits the curb stomp and the Fiend just kind of rises up, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then he hits another stomp, and then another stomp, and then another one, and another one, and another one. This man hit double digit worth of stomps and still didn't put this man away. And this is where the suspension of disbelief gets toyed with a little bit too much and it
Yeah.
becomes a little bit too cute. So, what was your thought on this Hell in a Cell match? And isn't this the worst Hell in a Cell match of all time?
There's no argument there. Is the you can maybe remove the Hell in a Cell part. It might be one of the worst matches of all time. When you consider multiple factors, like you said, you have the Fiend character debut at SummerSlam. Awesome debut against Finn Balor. And it wasn't too much. It left a lot for us to still expect to see. It was short. It did what it had to do. Like, man, this supernatural badass, like invulnerable to pain. You know, what his mask was insane. I remember
Mm-hmm.
seeing his mask for the first time, like as a kid. Like you were probably scared of like maybe Mankind's mask or Kane's mask. No, if I was a kid and I saw that mask, that would probably give me nightmares. Like that
Yeah.
was in the detail in that mask was insane. I've never seen anything like that. But like you said, they hot shotted the Fiend 2 months after that into the title picture. Like I said, without really no explanation. Like me personally, I like the Firefly Funhouse segments. Like I always got a laugh and a chuckle out of those. But like you said, way too soon. We didn't have a purpose of why you're this spooky demonic figure, but now you want to go after the title for in a short amount of time. Okay, then the match happens. Like you said, double digit curb stomps, and then not just maybe one the worst Hell in a Cell match of all time, the worst finish to a match of all time because it's a Hell in a Cell match. It's either pin or submission, no in between. I didn't think it was possible. I'm sure you with me and everyone watching me the same thing. I never thought it was possible for a disqualification to happen in Hell in a Cell. Like, let's go back in our DeLorean, 1998, Mankind versus Undertaker, Hell in a Cell. I was 10 years old watching this. When Undertaker threw Mankind off the cage, I thought he was dead. I was like, 10-year-old me? I used to sleep over my grandparents' house to watch all the pay-per-views all the time. And I was about to go to bed. I'm like, oh my God, he's getting carted out, prime match over. No, he comes back and then, gets slammed through the ring. The match never stopped. He could have been killed twice. The match never stopped. But you get your Seth hitting the Fiend with all the plunder, the chairs, the toolboxes, everything. The ref's like, no, you're going too far on a supernatural figure of the Fiend and a disqualification of no contest. Like, and correct me if I'm wrong. After the match I think the crowd was chanting multiple chants. I think it was like restart the match, or were there also AEW chants? Was AEW started at that time?
They were the AEW, I believe, didn't start yet, but it was starting soon. But there were
Yeah,
AEW chants.
yeah, they didn't start on TNT yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had done their Double or Nothing and a couple small shows, but yeah, they hadn't started on TV yet. But yeah, that's still crazy though. They weren't even on TV yet, and you're already getting AEW chants. Like, that's just how bad it was. Like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. So in one swoop, you destroyed the Fiend at any legitimacy he has, and along with Seth Rollins' title reign, you might as well just end it as soon as possible because that's it. It's pretty much over. Sight on scene with that match right there.
Mm-hmm. And the worst part of it is, in my opinion, where the ref goes to Seth, no, you're better than this in the Hell in a Cell match. But after, like, the ref calls for the bell, Seth Rollins looks over the Fiend to make sure he's, like, I guess dead, I don't know. And then the Fiend comes back from the ashes and starts choking him out. And that's when the crowd was starting to chant, restart the match. Because, like, why are we calling the match? And, it's very hard to toe that line of supernatural characters. And this is the perfect example of why most of the time they don't exactly work out how they should within the wrestling setting. Besides the wrestling setting being, a little bit of in fantasy, right, a little bit in reality. But we're going to go to another supernatural creature. We made reference to him earlier. You made reference to him. The Undertaker. And The Undertaker was chasing that dragon of that last match before his retirement. And, oh boy.
Yeah, that match.
Okay, so we all have thoughts on the Saudi Arabia shows. If you think they're good for WWE and bad for WWE, they're happening. They have the deals, and unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. But it is The Undertaker versus Goldberg, a dream match that nobody thought would happen. And to be honest, we probably also thought that it should have just stayed a dream. So, when this match was first announced, what were your initial thoughts on it?
My expectations were very low because if you remember that run of Goldberg, 2019, it was obvious. You knew what you were getting with Goldberg. It was jackhammer, spear, 5-6 minute match. In out. Hopefully don't put anyone in the hospital. By accident or anything like that. And I will say this, like when he started, that initial feud in 2016 with Brock. I mean, I think they more than made up for the WrestleMania 20 debacle, with the Survivor Series moment where Goldberg squashed Brock, and then the following WrestleMania, I think it was 33 in Orlando, 7-8 minute match, but that's what we should have gotten. The previous, WrestleMania 20. It was great for those matches. Like Goldberg, he did what he had to do. He looked great, and I will say, going back to 2019 SummerSlam, I think he went up against Dolph Ziggler.
Yes.
I think, for what it was, it was a squash match. We didn't know it was going to be squash, but it was entertaining squash because Goldberg kept leaving the ring. But friggin' Dolph is an idiot on the mic, like, is that all you got? They just kept getting killed over and over. It was entertaining for what it was, for what would turn out to be a bad SummerSlam match. But now with Goldberg and Undertaker, you have two guys who are in their mid to late 50s, and it's like you get why it's happening. It's Saudi Arabia. They probably wrote the check and they say, "Hey, give us this match." It is what it is. I mean, how Undertaker's lucky to be walking right now. If you remember that spot
Yeah.
in particular, that well, it was a couple of them. Well, freaking, I think Goldberg almost concussed himself running to the turnbuckle.
Yeah.
And then I guess for whatever reason, he's like, "Oh, I'm concussed. Hi, Undertaker, you join with me." A botched jackhammer straight on his damn head. I'm like, at that point, I don't know how the referee's not screaming like, "Yo, just end it, just pin him or something, get out of there."
Yeah, like Goldberg is busted open. Undertaker is hitting tombstones that's almost like dropping Goldberg on his head. And there's
Yeah.
this meme photo of the Undertaker looking so dissatisfied with the entire
Hmm.
match that, again, I think it's one of the few times, like, Taker's usually good of keeping in character, you know? That was just like, we all knew what it was, unfortunately. And it just kind of sucks because these two are, whether you like Goldberg or like Undertaker or not, these two are still legends in the sport. And it's just kind of tough to see them where it's just like they're at this point where they can't deliver on a good match anymore. And it is unfortunate, but at the same time, it's a lot of meme worthy stuff came from
Yeah.
it. I remember Goldberg was like trying to hit like a dragon screw, and I don't think he like hit one in like since like 2003. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's actually trying to have a match,
Hmm.
and
No.
I got so confused. But
Yeah.
yeah, like those like Saudi Arabia shows were a little bit weird. But let's rewind a little bit and let's go to Kofi Kingston's championship run. We got the Kofi Mania moment, and it was kind of apparent early on when WWE signed with Fox, and there was rumors of Fox wanting Brock Lesnar on their show, that Kofi was gonna hold this title until Brock came back. But he could still have a good run in the meantime.
Hmm.
That didn't happen.
No, it didn't. It really didn't, and what's a damn shame because I'll give WWE credit whether it's Vince or whoever's in charge. They could book the chase. They could book the chase great,
Mhm.
like whether it was a Daniel Bryan back in 2013 or Kofi Mania in this instance. They could book the chase. They could book the journey
Mhm.
to the goal to the mountaintop great. But like with Kofi, I just wonder like how far ahead did they go? Go with like planning for his future title run. Challengers and stuff like that. Any storylines, and that's the thing. It just felt like it was just a mixed match of like random opponents here and there. Whether it was Dolph. Good. I'm sorry, no offense to Dolph, but what was he doing in the main event scene at that point? Like, it doesn't matter, I think Dolph's a great wrestler, but if you're not booking any of these mid card to upper main event guys to credible threats when to challenge for the title, it means absolutely nothing that they're challenging for Kofi. So whether it was Dolph, whether it's KO. Now I was interested when he went up against Randy Orton because they have history
Right.
right there. And it kind of felt like they were playing into it a little bit. Go back to what's 07, 08, kind of that year where Randy got, pissed off at Kofi. I guess he botched something in the moment, when he
Yeah.
kept, that whole bit, stupid, stupid. Like, that was just crazy Randy Orton
Yeah.
back in the day. So I was interested in that, but then again, it just fell flat
Mhm.
in my opinion. And like you said, when we knew the Fox deal was going through for SmackDown and Brock was coming back, we all had that invisible clock on our wrist. Like, yeah, just any moment now. And once that match was announced, like,
Mhm.
I mean, we knew it was gonna happen, but damn, a 1 minute, not even a 1 minute, like a 30-second
5 second.
like a 5 second squash. I was like, Jesus Christ, at least like
Hit him with
fool
something.
us. Yeah, at least fool us. Like, let us think he has some sort of a chance, but nope.
Yeah.
Yep, here's our champion, and guess what? He won't be on TV. So there
Yeah.
you go.
I think the damning thing about it was like they kept Kofi fairly strong throughout this entire run. We say like, it was bad, but there was a reason for that. If you look at his rivalries at the time, like you had the Kevin Owens thing, which was he was quickly babyface and then he turned heel and then babyface again. So you didn't really get attached to the Kevin Owens character at that point because he was just coming back.
Hmm.
Then the Dolph Ziggler, it should have been me kind of deal happened for a couple pay per views, and I like Kofi and Dolph, but Dolph was coming off a long layoff, so the crowd wasn't really connected with him. Then you had Samoa Joe. That was fine for what it was, but again, they didn't really portray that feud in a main event spotlight, and we're going to talk about why in a little bit. And then you had the Randy Orton thing, and Randy Orton was coming off a couple of losses too. So Kofi was kind of feuding with these guys when they're like at a low point momentum wise. So it didn't really make him all that strong. It's like you in your mind, you're like, yeah, he's supposed to win because he's kind of like at that level, and it didn't elevate Kofi's run. And then when you finally get up to Brock, then you're like, all right, at least he'll hit like a Trouble in Paradise or something. And then he didn't. And 1, 2, 3. And then that was all to segue into a Brock Lesnar Cain Velasquez match at the Saudi Arabia
Oof.
show with Goldberg and Undertaker.
Yeah.
And yeah, and apparently Fox wanted Brock Lesnar, but then Brock Lesnar said he quit SmackDown after he got drafted to SmackDown, so he could go back to Raw, and
Yeah.
it just like it was just reeked of like unorganization. And I'm gonna tell you something that was actually pitched for the Kofi Kingston Brock Lesnar match to make sense of it all. So Lance Storm, he was on the creative team at the time, the booking team at the time, or the producer team, and a creative pitch he had was that there would have been a leak in the game plan for Kofi Kingston. So Kofi Kingston would take stuff out of the Goldberg playbook of attack him first and early, but someone would have gone to Paul Heyman and tell him, hey, this is the game plan that was going down. And it would have later revealed to be either Xavier Woods or Biggie or both, saying they didn't want the championship to corrupt Kofi Kingston in a way. And then you would have a feud with the New Day or just like a reconciliation with the New Day. So, hearing this for the first time, what are your thoughts on that storyline? Could have it worked, or do you think it was just going to be like trying to make something out of nothing?
I mean, just at that point, like if it's like right before the Brock match, which was mid to late October, I don't have that much. I wouldn't have that much faith that it would have worked out. I mean, just going off of what's how the rest of the year's been booked so far. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I, yeah, I don't have any faith that it would have worked. Because I just don't think so many negatives outweighed the few positives that was going on for WWE at that point. Whether it was booking in the ring, out the ring, and we'll touch on more in a bit. But yeah, my faith would have been 0 to none on that if they would have gone that route with him feuding with the New Day.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about Kofi Kingston and why he wasn't portrayed as a main event player. And that is the WWE decided to debut the wild card rule. And now, if you don't know what the wild card rule is, ladies and gentlemen, one, consider yourself lucky. Two, this is a couple weeks after the draft happened. So, not the draft. This was during the superstar shakeup phase.
Yeah.
So it's just like you'll have on Raw, you'll have the SmackDown guys like, "Oh, I'm on Raw now." Then you go to SmackDown, it's like, "Oh, I'm on SmackDown now." But a couple weeks later, because ratings were very, very low at this point, Vince McMahon thought of the wild card rule, and there was this weird segment with Roman, Daniel Bryan, and Kofi Kingston, and Vince McMahon's like, "Oh, we're called the wild card rule." So 3 stars from Raw can go to SmackDown at any time, and 3 stars from SmackDown could go to Raw at any time. And then it was later changed to 4 because Lars Sullivan scared Vince or something. I don't know. I don't
Hmm.
remember. But what were your thoughts on the wild card rule, and was it a destined to fail kind of deal?
Absolutely, because you immediately, with that announcement of the wild card rule, you completely negate the draft or the superstar shakeup. You wasted time of having a draft, like say everyone's over here,
Mhm,
everyone's here. But if you're one of two, three lucky people, you get to go over here.
mhm,
And what's crazy that there's only so many spots that you get, so many segments you get on a Raw or SmackDown. If you have 3 or 4 guys coming from another brand, you're taken away from potential TV time, or whether it's in the ring or on the microphone, you're taken away from people who are already on the roster, who may have a hard time getting booked as it is. So, and then if you remember with the wild card, it was always the same handful of people. it was always the guys on the top of the card, who were going back and forth between Raw and SmackDown. So it was destined to fail because, like I said, you negate the whole purpose of a draft. Like you're supposed to see this set of superstars over here, this set of superstars over here, but guess what? You get two extra. I'm like, why? It made no sense. And if I remember, none of it ever like factored into any major storylines, any major title feuds or implications or anything like that. It was just the showing a face on a different network for the sake of what, surprise, or keep people guessing on their toes. But yeah, in my memory, recollection, like I don't remember one instance like, wow, this person showing up here really, um, showed why this wild card rule works out great. For
Mhm.
me, no, it was doomed as soon as it was announced.
And let's talk about the WWE draft because WWE did bring their draft back later on in the year, but they didn't bring it back after WrestleMania. They brought it back in October. And for those of you who
Mm.
have listened to WWE stuff in the past or know of WWE lore, Survivor Series was always they kind of combined it with bragging rights, where it was Raw versus SmackDown. So having the draft in October is a weird choice for people to suddenly be loyal to a brand that they've only been a part of for a couple weeks. So, what were your thoughts on the draft coming back at that certain amount of time? When's a perfect time for the draft to happen?
Well, I could see why they did it in October that year because remember that was when they brought SmackDown to Fox.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's a bigger audience, so you want more eyeballs on it. You want to make it a bigger deal. But you're absolutely right. Like how are you supposed to take seriously brand loyalty when it's barely even a month until Survivor Series when you have all these cross brand matches like that? But to answer your question, when should the draft happen? Like I say, when it's happening right now. Like
Mhm.
this upcoming week. I think it starts on this Friday on SmackDown, then continues on next Monday on Raw. Yeah, give it a few weeks after Mania, because you still want the fallout from Mania to breathe a little bit.
Mhm.
So I say like a good 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a month after Mania. I think it's fine. How they're doing it right now is fine. But yeah, the October thing they did in 2019, that was specifically because they brought SmackDown to Fox. So larger audience, bigger audience, make it a big deal. So I won't hold that. I won't like be that negative about because I can see where it is from like a TV and a rating standpoint. So I
Right.
can at least understand that. And at this point in my life, I don't take like Survivor Series that serious when it's like brand versus brand. Like I don't care about that because I know they don't take it that seriously, so I'm not gonna
Mhm.
take it that seriously. I mean, it was a couple of cool matches that we got because remember they included NXT in that Survivor Series as well. Like the 5-on-5-on-5 match that was cool with Keith Lee and Roman being the last two.
Mhm.
I mean, that spirit bomb that Lee hit on Roman, where
Yeah.
he almost threw him off to the damn sky. That was a cool and dope moment. And I think we also got Adam Cole and Pete Dunne
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that
We
on that
did.
show too. Like that was, and it's a damn shame that Adam Cole has that showing, and he just never figured into like the main roster plans. I mean, he had everything. He had the mic work. He could get it done in the ring. He had the charisma, the personality. But then it's one of those old Vince tropes. Like you're not a 6'2", 6'3", jacked, tan 250, whatever. You're always gonna look at. There's always gonna be a certain glass ceiling that you're never gonna break through.
Yeah. Let's talk about Adam Cole in 2019 because he had a phenomenal 2019. Being NXT champion for bulk of the year, appearances on. He was in the 2018 Royal Rumble. He was then in the 2019 Survivor Series. Defending against Pete Dunne, and he was also on Monday Night Raw defending the NXT Championship against Seth Rollins, against Daniel Bryan. And it is a shame, like you said, that they never really went with him or saw the amount of talent that could be brought into that roster. And this is where a lot of like things sort of kind of changed when NXT and the main roster were concerned, and then you kind of like call people up because you would get a taste of them, but when they were on the roster full time, then that's when everything about their character was changing, and then it was like whether it was good or bad, it was like a complete 180 from how they were portrayed in the NXT brand and the NXT roster. And with NXT, they were building it up to face off against AEW, and we're going to talk about that later. But with Raw and SmackDown, there was a new rule that was christened because Vince McMahon, allegedly, didn't want wrestlers to wrestle during commercial breaks. So
Oh.
we are in the 2 out of 3 falls era in 2019. So what this means is if you wanted a match to go multiple segments, because some segments of TV, with wrestling, there will be commercial breaks. Someone hits like a big crossbody or something onto the outside. Who's gonna win? We'll find out when we come back. None of that's happening right now. Now it's a 2 out of 3 falls match, so you'll get one fall happen one, and then commercial break, and then the next fall starts. So, what do you think about this?
It was horrible. It made legitimately no sense. I'm like, it literally made no sense because if, as far as I can remember, I don't remember any matches ever being advertised as 2 out of 3 falls match. It would always be the quick schoolboy roll up 1, 2, 3 within 1 2 minutes, and then commercial break. Oh, they're still going on. Oh, it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. And I'm like, why? It wasn't advertised to begin with. And I just don't understand how you can't follow a basic match like script like you're chain wrestling to start. Your hot spot, boom, dive out to the side in the ring, pose, gesture, quick commercial break, you're back, and they're still going at it. They're in a rest hold, headlock, chin lock, or something like that. But no, you have to immediately start another match. But it just made no sense. It added nothing to the absolute match. And matter of fact, it probably brought more questions. I'm like, wait, he just won before commercial break. Why are they going it again? And especially, there's no stakes at all with a 2 out of 3 falls match. Like, it's just why don't you just have a regular, like, I don't know, 10 to 12 minute match? Like, why did you have to, you know,
Uh,
don't reinvent the wheel? It made absolutely no sense, and I don't think we ever got an explanation for that long stretch of 2 out of 3 falls match. It was just, and I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I felt that was always a Monday Night Raw thing. I felt that happened more on Monday Night Raw because think about it, it's 3 hours, so you got
yeah.
to fill the time. But I'm like, you have all those wrestlers that you could do way more. But just the 2 out of 3 falls match, like there was a point where I would just turn off my TV. I'm like, if this is what I'm getting, like half the card is the same, 2 out of 3 falls match. I'm like, why even bother watching? And not just me, but you saw all those other people tuned out as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I do agree that narratively, 2 out of 3 fall matches makes no sense unless you say to your viewing audience, "Hey, all matches are now going to be 2 out of 3 fall matches." And if you don't give them a reason why, then it's like, all right, then what's the point? Because it's just like it's doesn't mean anything in terms of like changing the wheel, like you said. It doesn't mean anything in terms of just forwarding anybody's progression or character. Because if like let's say if Sami Zayn pins like Kofi Kingston in one fall and then Kofi wins 2 straight, what did that prove? He could have like had a pinfall victory over the champion, but Kofi already beat him 2 out of 3 times. So
hmm
it really is just a moot point at that point in
and
time.
and and also like historically, when you look at 2 out of 3 falls matches, like the stakes are always high
Mhm.
in those matches. Like you could go back to like what 2003 Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, 2 out of 3 falls match where I think it was a 3 stages of hell. One was a
Yeah,
regular
yeah,
match,
yeah.
one was a ladder match, and I think the other was a Hell in a Cell. Like it was 3 different matches, like
Mhm.
or like NXT Takeover Toronto, Revival and DIY 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT titles match. Like fun fact, I actually drove there. I went
Oh,
to that.
nice.
8 hour drive to Toronto. Like if you've never experienced a wrestling show with Canadian fans, like you gotta experience that. It's a amazing wrestling fans up there. That was maybe one of the greatest matches I've ever seen live. Like
Mhm.
those two teams, they tore the house down that night. But like those matches, like 2 out of 3 falls matches, like they meant something. The stakes were high, but you keep doing it not just every week, but multiple segments. Like you devalue the whole 2 out of 3 falls match. Like it's like, oh man, what's gonna happen now? He's like, oh no, here we go. We have 2 or 3 of them a night, and it's like it was just lazy.
Mhm.
If we could just put it bluntly, it's just the laziest booking possible.
And speaking of lazy booking, we got to talk about one of the biggest runs of 2019, but not by a wrestler, but he is the best in the world,
Oof.
Shane McMahon.
Mm.
So let's paint a picture for the listening audience at home. Shane McMahon, son of Vince McMahon, started the year off teaming with The Miz. I'm just gonna let that breathe for a second. The Miz and Shane McMahon were a team. I actually kind of liked their storyline. It was fun, but people were always anticipating The Miz turning on Shane, which leading to a WrestleMania match. But in a twist, I wouldn't call it bad or like horrible, but in a twist, Shane McMahon actually attacked The Miz, and then you had Shane McMahon believing his own hype as the best in the world because the year before he won the Best in the World trophy on one of the Saudi Arabia shows. I think it was
Hmm.
Crown Jewel. But
Yeah, I believe so.
so throughout this entire thing, Shane McMahon is feuding with The Miz. Then it's like, all right, it's a middle of the card feud, and then he's feuding almost immediately with Roman, and then immediately after that, Drew McIntyre is Shane McMahon's heavy, and then you have Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre against Roman Reigns and The Undertaker, and then you have Shane McMahon against Kevin Owens, who went back to a babyface after his feud with Kofi Kingston. So this whole run kind of feels like a fever dream. It's kind of like if you like loaded up 2K and you hit the randomizer button and you're like, all right, that's good. Here we go. We're just gonna throw Shane McMahon in universe mode, and he's just gonna take out everybody. What were your thoughts on the Shane McMahon heel turn, and do you think it benefited anybody?
I feel it benefited no one at all. The and I'm trying to think. The most egregious act of his run was that. Correct me if I'm wrong. He got a clean pin over Roman. Am I correct in that?
I'm not sure if Drew interfered, but it's like
Well,
it was a clean like 1, 2, 3. There was no like
I
low
mean,
blow, no tights. Yeah,
he pinned his
yeah,
shoulders to the ground, and on the record, you could look it up.
yep,
Shane McMahon, before he became the tribal chief, before he became the leader of the bloodline, he pinned Roman Reigns in the middle of the ring. Uh, yeah, it was. I will say though, I didn't mind at first the feud with him and the Miz
hmm
because I don't know, like I felt because like I said, I was there at WrestleMania 35, for that no holds bar match that they had. Like it was pretty dope seeing him climb up that scaffolding and then the suplex, that he did off the scaffold. That was from where I sat. That was a cool vantage view. But then it's funny from where I'm sitting at. We saw the finish hat coming from a mile away. He's gonna slam him into the crash pad, but what's gonna happen? Shane's arm is across the Miz's 1, 2, 3. I'm like, oh man,
yeah.
that you know what that meant? That means this Shane character is just gonna continue to get worse and worse, and like you said, unfortunately, just by the his his bringing in Drew into that as well. I'm like, Drew is so much better than that. Come on, he shouldn't be anyone's heavy at this point. Like and him coming back up to the main roster, back to the WWE. But yeah, this benefited absolutely no one. Like nobody went up in the card. Nobody went up in the card. Nobody went down. Everyone was just the same. The only one who was ascending was Shane.
Yeah.
Shane in a sense. Like I mean,
I think that's the
yeah.
perfect way to describe 2019 WWE. No one was like ascending up the card. They were just kind of like staying where they were at. And it's like things were happening, but it's just like you kind of reshuffle the deck, but it's still the same cards. You're still getting the same hand. You're still getting the same everything. No one is increasing their place in the pecking order. But we were talking about Roman Reigns before, and Roman Reigns is 2019. I'm going to use this term again. It was a fever dream, because it's like he announces he's in remission, which is fantastic news. We got Roman Reigns back. But again, they're not going to give him the championship right away. But us as fans, we're looking at him. It's like, okay, he's going to get the championship eventually. So he's just kind of in that weird period where he's just going to kill time until they feel confident in putting the championship back on him. And then we have a bunch of, I will say, like, I don't want to say weird storylines. They were just kind of like, just way too descriptive storylines, if that made sense. Because you had Rowan as the vehicular manslaughtered person trying to kill Roman Reigns, and then you
Mhm.
had Roman and Daniel Bryan turning babyface against Rowan and Harper for a bit. And this was this weird point where Harper, Brody Lee, went on Twitter, asked for his release. But Daniel Bryan actually called him and say, "Hey, do you want to do this thing?" And Brody was like, "All right, I'm all about it." So they had all of that. So that was done with Roman, and then we get to the King Corbin Roman Reigns feud, which was over. Drum roll, please. Some dog food. So, because Roman's the big dog, dog food. Now, I've seen the new generation era. I've been through the PG era.
Mhm.
I've even been through the ruthless aggression era where Triple H and Kane had their feud. But this is probably top 5 worst. Not because it was offensive, but because I don't think anybody asked for this. And if like it didn't make anybody look good.
No, there was for neither Roman or Baron. There was no winning or coming out the other side looking good
hmm
for this entire program. Now, I will give them credit. I remember that following Royal Rumble, they did have a great match, in my opinion. I think they had a no false count anywhere match.
Yeah.
It was a cool visual of seeing Roman. I think he hit a spear on Corbin on top of the dugout. I guess I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
it was in Arizona, if I'm correct.
I believe so. It was a baseball stadium. I do remember that.
Yeah, I think it might have been Arizona if I'm correct, but it was a cool visual seeing him hit the spear on top of the dugout. That was cool. But I mean, even before that, you had the dog mascot coming out, that horrible song with the dog
Oh yeah,
barking,
I forgot about that.
and then just the piece de resistance, the uh, freaking Baron Corbin, and who was he? Who was he with? Who was helping him out at that time?
The Dirty Dogs.
Oh yeah, yeah, Dirt Dogs. Them chaining him up to the post and pouring the dog food on him, and I just to stray away real quick. Like I know we'll touch on this a little later, but I fear what would happen to Roman's career if AEW never came around,
hmm
like to force Vince and creative to do a complete 180. Because just imagine there's no AEW or any other promotion that will help that pushes the envelope to like make them think twice about what their WWE is doing. Like they still may have been trying to force feed us like babyface superhero Roman Reigns to this day. You never know.
hmm
Because with remember, no competition, there was no reason to change at all. They wanted that next John Cena. They wanted that next superhero. They saw that in Roman, but the fan base they just never took because I just feel like back then and even kind of a little bit now, I feel majority of the fan base were over that superhero, against all odds, overcome all odds, baby face. We like more of those everyday guys.
hmm
Like we want like your Austins who are kind of like your anti-heroes. Like yeah, you cheer for them, but just like them, you want to kick your boss's ass. Every once in a
Right.
while.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a rough going for Roman, and man, listen, he's a better man than most of us. Because if I had went through that, I think I would have marched right to Vince's office, like either you change this crap now or I quit. Like
Yeah.
I'm going straight to Hollywood.
Yeah. That was the breaking point. I think for Roman. I think they went over it in the A&E documentary where everything shut down with COVID. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm not coming back as the big dog like ever again, just because again the writing at the time was just very terrible. But that's neither here nor there because, as you mentioned before, we have this new promotion called AEW. You have the Young Bucks, you got Cody, you got Kenny Omega, you got Tony Khan starting this legitimate competition in the United States, the first time since WCW, and it was a breath of fresh air into the professional wrestling world where it was shining a light on what the independents were doing, what New Japan was doing, Ring of Honor was doing, and everything during that like 2016 to like that 2019 period. It was just gaining momentum because you had guys that were coming from the independents going to WWE that Triple H was putting a spotlight on that were succeeding, and then you have all this new crop of guys that people were finding out about and who never got that national exposure, and along with veteran names like a Chris Jericho, like a Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, in this new environment where all everybody knew for a big bulk of time was how WWE did wrestling. Now you have this new promotion doing wrestling their own way. So, in your opinion, what made AEW so drastically different from WWE that it forced WWE to change their ways on how they view creative?
Whether like starting with the talent, like certain guys like say like a John Moxley or like a Hangman Page and other guys like that. They had characters, they had wrestlers that I felt the fan base could connect to more on a more realistic level, and it just, like I said, brought an era of freshness that we wanted. There's that hardcore section of the base that, plain and simple, they wanted to see more wrestling. They wanted to see a higher work rate. They wanted to see more action, something that WWE, wasn't really, fond of doing on a weekly basis. They wanted more violence. They wanted more blood. They wanted a lot of stuff that a lot of us older fans grew up, whether it was the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression era. They wanted a product with some edge. They wanted a product that just felt different from the cookie cutter aspect of what WWE was. Something that is a little off the wall at times. A little crazy, a little wacky, but it was always a sense every week in the beginning days of AEW when they started in 2019 that you could see something different every week. You're seeing fresh faces that you haven't seen in WWE. Like you're introduced to guys like MJF, like guys like Darby Allin, who, remember, he had that, I think it was the second or third week of Dynamite, he challenges Jericho for the title, and of course he loses, but he comes off looking as a star as he is today, even in defeat. You see guys like Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, the Lucha Bros. You may have heard the name the Young Bucks, but now you're seeing them on a weekly national basis. You get, and just like Kenny Omega as well. Now you're seeing those guys front and center, and it just gave you that breath of fresh air of, we're seeing that violence, that hardcore edge that a lot of the fan base had been yearning for so long, what WWE had been missing for so long. So, in my opinion, if AEW never came around, if they never formed, does WWE go into a different creative direction? Do they scurry away from their old booking, tropes and tendencies, or do they just keep pushing forward with what they know? I feel whether you're a fan of AEW or not, you should be grateful that there's another big promotion in this country that will push the envelope, that will not only bring you a different product than what you're used to, but it's going to push WWE to step their game up
Mhm.
in so many ways that you can make an argument it's the best excuse me, that the product has been at an all-time high as far as like just content, and just stepping up their overall game, for the fans. I think it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, and how competition does bring out the best in everybody, whether it's like people want to be toxic about it and just say, oh, this is better than the other thing, but even healthy competition, because you see the people from different brands supporting each other, and that's what wrestling should be about, to support everybody's success in this industry where for so long there was a not a lot of ways to get a consistent paycheck with wrestling, but now we have two giant companies where they can get paid a healthy amount and still do what they love and expand their audience. And I know people will say, oh, ratings, oh, this, oh, that. It still gets a lot of people exposure, and it still gets a lot of people jobs. And you're going to have talent go back from AEW to WWE and WWE to AEW, like how any job goes with this. And if you think about it, like the culmination of WrestleMania 40 was pretty much the biggest WWE guy, which is Roman Reigns, to the arguably the biggest AEW guy in 2019, which is Cody Rhodes. And then you had this um, like head to head happen, and who would have thought of that? And now WWE, instead of sports entertainment, they're going back to professional wrestling, which is what they were. And without AEW, we don't get that, And you could talk about like, oh, because of the Vince stuff, this, that, and the other thing, but without that like shove by AEW, I don't think WWE gets the kickstart, at least right now at this point, that we're at right now without AEW.
100% agree. And then, like you said, if AEW is not around, like remember when Cody Lee left WWE back in 2016, he's released.
Hmm.
A lot of people may not know this or remember this, but that was Cody's first time on the independent scene. Because remember, he came into WWE like that was his first wrestling gig.
Right.
But so I think he had a discussion with Kevin Owens at the time of his release, and he was basically like, man, I don't know what to do. It's the first time going out there, and it was Kevin Owens. If I heard correctly from a report or old interview, it was Kevin Owens that gave the Young Bucks number to Cody
That's
Rhodes.
correct. Yeah.
And basically, Kevin Owens called the Young Bucks and like, hey, listen, he's a good guy. Take care of him. Look out for him. So, as much as you may not like the Young Bucks or the Elite or whatever, like you also have to give credit to the Young Bucks and the Elite for kind of being there with Cody through his Ring of Honor days, through his New Japan days, to 2018. That big all-in show that they did in Chicago, taking on that Dave Meltzer challenge when Meltzer was like, "Oh, you guys can't sell an arena." Like, yep, watch me. Put me, the Bucks, and Omega on the card. We'll sell it out. They sell it out in minutes.
Yeah, 30
If
minutes.
I
Yeah, less than 30.
in less than under 30 minutes, and if it wasn't for that show, Tony Khan you know, doesn't probably believe, can I start a second promotion? Is there enough interest? And he turned out to you're right, but like you said, you're gonna have people going back and forth from WWE to AEW and vice versa. But like I said, no AEW is around. You don't get that Cody moment at WrestleMania 40. And then we could look at last night at Dynasty.
Mm.
Remember, Swerve gets released from WWE November 2021, debuts in AEW Revolution 2022. 2 years later, he is crowned as a champion. It is time and place in anything in life, especially in the wrestling business.
Mm-hmm.
Cody going back to AEW, going back to WWE was the best thing for him, as was John Moxley coming to AEW was the best thing for him. Now you can make the same case with Swerve. Like Swerve coming to AEW was the best thing for his career. I think whether you're a fan of whatever product or not, like whether you're a fan of WWE or a fan of AEW, you should not want either program to go away because, like you said, it's another avenue for wrestlers to make their money, and it's healthy competition brings out the best in wrestling on all levels. But yeah, if you don't have that other secondary promotion, WWE would just be kind of a chilled, relaxed, like kind of neutral, setting. So I feel AEW around for the long run is best for the entire wrestling business, whether you like it or not.
I 100% agree. Without AEW, we don't have. We're not at this point in wrestling. Wrestling makes when wrestling's good, everybody benefits.
Yeah.
It's that old saying where it's like, where you're the top guy, you're trying to fit all this money in your pockets. You're not going to be able to fit all the money in the pockets, but you're going to have money and dollar bills trickle out, and that's when everybody else benefits and they start picking up the cash for themselves.
And just real quick, like you want to know who doesn't want AEW to go away? Guys like Becky, guys like Drew, guys like Seth. Why? Because their contracts are coming up soon.
That's right.
I think Drew, I think is the end of May, beginning of June, if I heard correctly.
Couple weeks, yeah.
Yeah, almost 5-6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, if there was no other legitimate competition or another billionaire who could write the checks, they have zero leverage. It's like, just take what we give you and you're going to be happy with it. But I think all three are going to stay in WWE. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
It was funny. Like, I see the Yankee poster behind you. Like, remember Aaron Judge last year? He flew out during free agency. He flew out to San Francisco. And most of my friends are Yankee fans as well. Like, he basically, what did he do? He used San Francisco as leverage to get the biggest and best deal from the Yankees. He kind of scared the crap out, I know, of a lot of the fan base. Like, oh my God, is he actually leaving? Like, stuff like that. But no, he was smart. He played it well. He's from the Bay Area as well. He's probably going home to his family.
Right, yeah.
But he knows what he was doing. I'm sure his agent said, yo, just go to San Francisco during free agency. We'll take care of it. And it's the same. I think it was a couple of years ago, Randy Orton's contract came along, and he trolled everyone. I think he took a picture in front of a door on the plaque said Elite or something like that. Like, and I'm sure Cody was in on it too. Like, use the other promotion to get as much out of it as possible.
Hmm.
So, like I said, if Drew, Seth, or Becky, I'm sure they're grateful for AEW being around because that's leverage for them to get the best possible deal possible. Because like I think in this instance with WWE's main event scene, they can't afford to lose either Seth or Drew
Yeah.
at this point. That's my opinion. Especially us finding out now that Seth wrestled back to back WrestleMania nights on a torn meniscus. Like that, that's
Yeah,
fucking
there
insane.
was a
like
video that was going around Twitter or X, whatever you want to
I
call it,
saw that one.
and
Yeah.
it's like with the Superman punch, and
Hmm.
the comment was Seth's leg's not supposed to like bend that way, and it's like
Yeah.
if you remember, I equated to like, do you remember in SmackDown? This was like in 2004, where like Big Show chokeslam Kurt Angle off the scaffolding, and his legs just like in a gross, disgusting position.
Yeah.
It was like that position, like Seth's like leg, and then it's like you see the video of him. He can't even stand. He needs like help on up. Now, whether he was like over exaggerating the injury or not, it's still like you can still see like he's pretty emotional during the whole entire time. And with Seth Rollins, he was Team WWE since he pretty much walked in the door, so I don't see him really going anywhere. Same thing with Becky, if that's the case. Drew, like he's playing it up. He was tweeting like the CM Punk like blow kiss goodbye Money in the Bank picture with the championship. So that would be pretty interesting, especially since we have Clash of the Castle with what call it in Scotland this year.
Hmm.
And I think Sean Ross said like his contract expires before then, but he could always run like they could always like do an extension, if they don't get the deal in time. But without AEW, we don't get all of these like opportunities for these superstars, which is what we want as fans pretty much. We want all these guys to get paid well for the entertainment they provide us. But instead of talking about AEW pushing WWE too much, I got a question for you, sir, about WWE 2019. All right, so you can only you can only erase one of these things from your memory that we just talked about. So we have the Fiend Hell in a Cell, the 2 out of 3 Falls era, the wild card rule, Goldberg versus Taker, Seth Rollins' entire run, Kofi Kingston's entire run, Roman's run, and Shane McMahon's run. What are you erasing from your mind?
Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it was a twofer.
Hmm.
It killed Seth Rollins' title run. I mean, it was already going down as it was, but it killed the Fiend character essentially. Like there was no recovering after Hell in a Cell after that disqualification. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Everything else was bad. It was all bad. But I would erase that one if we could get that the neuralizer from Men in Black. Like I would erase that from history. But that's why I chose when you asked me to be on your podcast, like that's why I chose 2019 because I also wanted people to realize that listen, we have to remember how bad WWE was and how necessary the creation of AEW was.
Hmm.
Like I said, it came around at the perfect time and place to push the envelope to bring bring the wrestling business where it is at now. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously a whole lot of other stuff like Vince related, that escalated things as well.
Yeah.
But for better or worse, it happened. What happens down the line, we don't know. But that's why I wanted to talk about 2019. Like even like I said, even if you're not a fan of AEW, you should be grateful for it in a sense that we're getting, in my opinion, the best WWE product that we have had in maybe over a decade
Hmm.
or so, maybe even further than that.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, damn, and like I said, now, and especially for both programs right now, like I don't know if you saw Dynasty last night, that freaking Danielson and Osprey
Yeah,
match, like
that was crazy.
holy crap! Listen, I'm 36 years old. I'm a 36-year-old man. I've seen my fair share of wrestling, and that last time was one of the few times recently that I jumped out of my chair a couple of times, like whether it was Danielson hitting Osprey with the cycling when Osprey went for the Os cutter,
Mm,
jumps up and then knee right to the, I'm like, oh my god! And then that damn hidden blade at the end looked like death.
yeah, and
And, and
and especially with people saying it's like, oh, this is the better match. This is a better match because I've seen some discourse with Osprey and Danielson and Roman and Cody, and I'm just like, why can't we just enjoy both? Why does one have to be better than the other? Doesn't really. They're two
It,
completely
it
different styles too. So I don't
it's
understand.
not just two different styles. Like both products, they give you something different. Like how do you say? Think of wrestling right now as like the greatest buffet that you could go to.
Mm,
Like if you want like your maybe over the top, high budget, more detailed finesse storylines, then you have that on Mondays and Fridays. If you want more of your action pack, there's storylines, but they're kind of like smaller in detail, not so intricate where you got to connect the 100-piece puzzle. But there's stories there you could follow along easy. But you like the high work rate, you like the high flying action, you like the more violence, more in your face attitude. You have Wednesdays, you have Friday nights, and you have Saturdays. You like the up and coming future. You got Ring of Honor Fridays, Honor Club. I mean, they're doing some great stuff too. TNA, like, listen, I want to get behind TNA. I really do. But when it feels like, what's the old saying? They take one step forward and then two steps back. It's like go back to January when Osprey and Alexander had that match, and then you have Scott D'Amore in the ring give that impassioned speech like, TNA is fucking back. And then and then they fire Scott D'Amore a couple weeks later.
yeah.
And it's like, come on, man. And it's like the guy who actually cared about that company. I think he was there for what the better part of the past 2 decades.
hmm
That was him. That was his baby, and you basically, let him go. And then you have a great pay per view this past Saturday. I didn't see. I think it was the Rebellion show.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I only saw highlights. I know Shayna said it was great and everything, but I'm not trying to sound mean. But then when your show ends with Matt Hardy, the twist of fate, and then he goes on Twitter the next day and says, "Oh, he hasn't signed. He's still choosing for both." And I'm like,
Yeah. I
I
think that's
mean,
more of like TNA changing their contract structure because a lot of people aren't signed to deals. They're like on a per appearance basis. I mean, you saw like the Machine Guns leave. You're
mhm.
gonna see a couple more people leave probably.
I
And
think,
it's more like
yeah.
I think it's more of a company thing where it's like they're trying to save money rather than think about like having consistent guys like underneath their watch.
Yeah, I think that was the big like issue between Demore and management. Like he wanted more money so he could sign some of the better talent, keep them longer. But I guess that was the reason behind his termination. Like they were just never going to see eye to eye on that. And I think as far as like changing up the contract situations, I think Josh Alexander he had his year option picked up this year, so basically one more year, and I think he'll probably walk as well, probably test the waters. But like I said, I think wrestling is firing on all cylinders right now. And here's what I ask: like for anyone who's just let's say just all WWE and not AEW or anything else, like I asked this question like, what do you want in an alternative
Hmm.
to WWE? Because just my personal opinion, like I watch both.
Mhm.
I feel AEW is the perfect alternative to WWE. And last night's card was perfect example of that. Like you look at the Osprey and Danielson match, like you just have like there's a little story there, but it's also like you just have wrestler A and wrestler B. You have the old guard who's on his last leg, might be his last year full time,
Mhm.
and then you got this young hungry lion right here who's debuting and who's been here a month and is already killing it right now, looking to take over that old lion. And man, just I don't even know if I don't even think I'm overstating this. That might have been the greatest wrestling match I saw last night.
Mm.
Like that was insane. Like they just shout out to St. Louis, by the way. St. Louis, the crowd was awesome because that crowd had every reason to be tired, had every reason to be dead after that match, but they stood awake for the ladder match afterwards.
Mm.
They kept it going, and for the main event, they stood consistent throughout the whole night. Actually, so
Yeah, St.
shout out
Louis.
to St. Louis. The St. Louis crowd was awesome.
Yeah, St. Louis is a great wrestling town too. Like them,
Yeah.
Chicago, like
Mhm.
Toronto, all those like cities are
I've
pretty
been to
good.
Toronto. I've been to Chicago. I've been to San Francisco. Obviously, I went to UK last year for all that. I'm going back again
Oh,
this
nice.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah, UK was insane.
yeah.
But
I'm going to
yeah,
Forbidden Door in Long Island.
yeah. Same here.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah, I remember all my tickets. Yeah, probably like later this week. But
yeah,
yeah, I talked to a whole bunch of content creators. Like
yeah.
I think some of them will be there as well. I'm trying to get Chrissy out here, but she didn't want to cross all the way over here.
No, yeah, I've been
But
trying. I've been trying to get her. I'm like, just come to. She's like, I have to go to Long Island. I'm like, I'm here. She's like,
yeah, like
yeah. I'm like, come on, Chrissy, I'm
I
begging you,
get.
join.
Watch come November for Full Gear. She's gonna want us to come out there to Jersey,
No, yeah, yeah, yeah,
which I don't mind. It's funny. I've
yeah,
been to Jersey. I've been to a couple of Full Gears actually. Out there in Newark and Dynamite's like,
yeah,
it's always a dope show out there.
yeah. But yeah, I'm excited for all the products that's coming on right now. I got my Forbidden Door tickets yesterday because I found the pre-sale. I was just like, yeah, let's just see how much they are, and I got them for a steal. So I'm just kind of like, all right, and like the floor seats aren't really that bad. I think the last time I
Yeah.
checked, it was like 500 when like
Yeah, I think it was
yeah.
like on the right side in the corner. That floor section was about 500. I checked. I've sat front row one time, and that was at Revolution last year in San Francisco. That
Oh,
was
there you
for
go.
the Danielson and MJF Iron Man match.
Oh, nice.
But I'm on the camera side. I'm on the hard camera side though,
Yeah.
like in the corner. But dude, it was freaking amazing, man. Like that match was insane. But no, I will definitely. I'm definitely getting tickets, so we'll definitely link up in
So,
Long Island.
sounds great to me, man. But
Yes, sir.
this has been Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars. Couldn't have done this without Baldbro. I thank him for his company because I could never cover 2019 alone. But Baldbro, plug your stuff. Where can people find you? What do you got going on? Take it away. Floor is yours.
Right now you can just find me on TikTok. Look up that bald bro, and I'm very easy to find. I do my wrestling content. I do a little anime stuff here and there. I'm a big Giants fan as well. I will be doing a live watch along for the draft coming up soon. Like I said, big Giants fan. Hopefully, I have no idea what the hell we're gonna do. Are we gonna draft quarterback, receiver, lineman? Are we gonna trade back? I have no damn clue, but we will see what happens. I do live watch-alongs for all the Giants games. I'm also a big Mets fan. Also, do some
I'm sorry.
content with that as well. It's a story of my life. I'm used to it by now, man. Listen, I'm a Mets fan in the Bronx, so I'm used to it all, man.
I got you.
It's the story of my life. But yeah, man, TikTok, that ball, bro. Come and enjoy some good content.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me, man. Again, you catch the show at Retold Richie Mars on the TikTok and the Instagram, at Retold Richie on the X or Twitter if you're on there. And we're getting some merch in the works. I'll let you guys know about that. But again, you can always catch me every Tuesday, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TTFN, Tata for now, and we will see you next time.